Welcome to our webinar today in our 21st Century Agenda webinar series. Today's webinar will be on building community-driven pathway to prosperity, weaving the wisdom and resources of community and academic partners to foster early life abundance. We will be recording this webinar and it will be shared on our YouTube channel after the webinar concludes. Please post any questions for our speakers in the chat. We will also have a Q&A portion at the end of the webinar. We should have ample time for questions, so please send those in and we will get them to our presenters. We will also be sharing in our chat a link to register for the other sessions of this webinar series. There are 6 webinars that's part of this 21st Century Agenda, so we hope that you'll join us for the other sessions and view the recordings of those that have happened already, and we'll be sharing that information in the chat as well. I am Stephanie Anderson. I'm the manager of the Clark Fox Policy Institute at Washington University in St. Louis, and we're partnering with the Academy on this webinar series. So thank you all for being here with us today. We have a big group. I'm going to go around and do a couple of introductions for us. So I want to just thank all of our speakers for being here today. We have Dr. Trina Shanks. She is the Harold R. Johnson Collegiate Professor of Social Work and Director of Community Engagement and Founding Director of the Center for Equitable Family and Community Wellbeing at the University of Michigan School of Social Work. Sonia Harb, Special Advisor on Detroit Engagement in the Office of the Provost at the University of Michigan. Reverend Larry Simmons, the Executive Director of the Brightmoor Alliance. And Laquita Brown, CNA and Early Childhood Education Certificate holder and resident at Brightmoor, will be joining us today as well. And from our Academy team, we have Mary McKay, the former president of the board of the Academy and vice provost of interdisciplinary initiatives here at WashU. We also have Nicholas Asher, program coordinator with the Academy, and Sanjam Dutt, also program coordinator at the Academy. And we have Alex Maldonado, who will be is a program coordinator with Casey Family Programs, who will be introducing the 21st Century Agenda today, and Laura Abrams, a professor of social welfare at UCLA and board member with the Academy, who will be moderating our Q&A. So I think I got everybody, but we're very happy to have all of you with us today, and I will hand it over to Alex to kick us off. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you for having me. Nice to meet you all. Again, I am the project coordinator with the Casey family in regards to the 21st Century Research Agenda. So since May of 2019, a diverse group of researchers, DEI experts, people with lived experience with the child welfare system, and policy experts have worked together to identify research gaps to enhance the development of 21st century approach to a child and family well-being system. So what began as a partnership between the Casey Family Programs, the NAE Casey Foundation, and the William T. Grant Foundation has evolved into a wider coalition of academic, national, and philanthropic organizations, bolstered by extensive participations from individuals with lived experience with child welfare. We believe that the new study should address the most critical issues facing the field so that the research findings can be used to support innovative policy, practice, and changes in funding. Currently, the Research Agenda Coalition is encouraging federal, state, and local foundations to address the high priority research gaps, and we are actively promoting conversations in a few key topic areas. These topic areas include helping the research community see study participants as partners in the research as part of prioritizing a commitment to social justice. So we believe that stakeholder involvement will help researchers focus on the most critical issues, especially if this is funded adequately. participation by community leaders and people with lived expertise in the development of research study lays the groundwork for the type of collaborations required to conduct the research ethically and effectively. To that end, some cultural experts and people with lived experience on our team have just produced a DEI tool to help enhance program planning and research study development. These collaborative research approaches can help ensure that the research meets the needs of not only the researchers, but the children, families, communities, and the provider organizations. So we are trying to improve how research is done while we help get more studies funded in the high priority gaps at the same time. So for more information, please see the 5-page initiative overview that was emailed to you. If you did not receive that, please reach out to me. I am more than happy to do that and send that again. I'll also put our website link in the chat as well, and the DEI tool for anybody that wants to chat or kind of get an overview of that, or just wants more in depth about it. You're more than welcome to reach out to me. I'll drop my email as well in the chat. But thank you for investing your time today with us, and a special thanks to our speakers, and I'll pass it on.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Alex. So my comments will be very brief because I really wanted to hear what the speakers have to say. I'm Mary McKay. I have the privilege of serving on the board of the American Academy of Social Work and Social Welfare. I am really, really so proud of this work, and I'm grateful for Alex. Thanks for those opening remarks. I'm grateful for the support of the Casey Family Foundation, Annie Casey Foundation, WT Grant Foundation. These foundations have really invested in significant ways in pulling together the steering committee that Alex is talking about, really having scientists talk with people, young people, families, community leaders, to come up with an agenda that will be meaningful and impactful. And so I'm so grateful for that, agenda and that coming together. I also do want to say that without Nicholas Asher, without Sanjam here, this would not be possible. So your coordination has been amazing. So thank you so much for really being the foundation of this work. So finally, let me turn it over to our speakers. Dr. Shanks, I've admired you my whole career. And so why do I say that? Because Trina, your values guide the way you work, what you study, how you put together the findings to make it matter in the world. And so I have watched you for years, admired you and your work, and I couldn't be more grateful for you to have brought talented colleagues with you to talk about the work and how you work together, so that the children and families and communities can really thrive. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over, have you introduce yourselves, and I'm looking forward to really hearing more in depth about your work. So thank you very much for being with us. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mary, for those kind words. I'm excited for this opportunity to share the great work we're doing in Detroit and Brightmoor. I'd like to start this conversation by making just 2 points. The consequences of poverty are hard on children, and partnerships are key for building pathways to prosperity. So I've written articles and given hour-long talks about the impact of poverty and economic security on child outcomes. What I'll say now, it is poverty is correlated with health outcomes, lower likelihood of graduating from high school, enrolling in and graduating from college, housing insecurity, periods of homelessness, and increased interaction with the child welfare and criminal justice systems. And so theoretically, people think this was related to parents not having the resources to invest in the material goods and services necessary to enhance child development, but also the amount of stress that families face trying to make ends meet with limited financial means. And so I'll emphasize 2 more concepts before introducing our community partners. One is the idea of intergenerational poverty. So technically, it's when children who grow up in households with income below the poverty line themselves are poor as adults. And so in the United States, for children who grew up in the 1980s in households below the poverty line, 34% are living in poverty themselves. And this percentage is even higher for Black and Native American children. And I'm going to put a report in the chat when I'm done talking, kind of from the National Economy Academies that kind of go deep into that if you want to learn more. But for the moment, just consider the burden of being a household that maybe has 3 generations of poverty, a grandmother, a mother, a child. That means almost no one in their immediate circle have much money or access to opportunity. And such intergenerational poverty and lack of generational wealth is all too common in the United States. And the second concept is this idea of concentrated poverty or hyper-segregation. So Douglas Massey says that 32% of Black metropolitan residents live in such areas of concentrated poverty, where physical communities where they reside also don't have sufficient resources. So the household doesn't have resources, and the communities they live in don't have a lot of resources. And I want to make these points just to help people understand the extent of the problems that we're trying to address, because they're not easy. And also to kind of bring in our minds that when people come up with evidence-based practices to address intergenerational poverty, whether it's a home visiting program or mentoring programs, they often rely on expertise that comes from outside of the community. And so people like myself from universities or professionals from government and social service agencies drop in and offer their solutions. And I'm all for evidence-based programs and investing in low-income communities and families. But if someone from the outside comes in, they have to convince families to participate and engage. And so what's exciting about the people and the programming that we're going to talk about today with the Brightmoor Alliance and the community-based group in this city in Detroit is that they came to us at the university and asked us to help them implement their own vision and co-design a program model that they thought would improve outcomes for young children in their own neighborhoods, building upon the existing work of the agencies and mobilizing community members to be actively involved and to bring others in. So our goal today is to showcase how a community-centered approach can foster sustainable change and build pathways out of poverty for low-income families. But I also have to make it clear that this partnership didn't just develop from scratch out of thin air. Next slide, please. It builds upon a foundation of work and trust that began almost 20 years ago. So between 2004 and 2005, the Skillman Foundation launched a community change initiative called Good Neighborhoods. This local foundation picked 6 communities that had large populations of children and high levels of poverty. And each of the 6 communities hired an executive director, established governing structures, approved bylaws, created action plans, had access to small grants, and worked really hard to improve outcomes for children with the focus on increasing high school graduation. So the book here, pictured here, many of us were involved in, it describes the history of Good Neighborhoods and what it accomplished in much greater detail than I can right now. But in Brightmoor, a small community in Detroit, the Brightmoor Alliance was the backbone governing organization of Good Neighborhoods. Residents went through training, strong leadership developed over time. And even as that Good Neighborhood funding from Skillman Foundation came to an end, they continued to work together, and Brightmoor Alliance continues to be a strong presence in the community. And as part of that process, for 10 years, I attended monthly community meetings, got to know Brightmoor and its residents. Sonia Harb, who you'll hear about in a second, was hired by the University of Michigan to manage a School of Social Work Technical Assistance Center that supported the Good Neighborhoods work. And Larry Simmons, who you'll hear about as soon as I'm done talking, is currently executive director of the Brightmoor Alliance and is pastor of the local Baber Memorial AME Church and continues to be an active and visible leader in the community. And so now when I pass it over to Pastor Simmons, next slide, give him a chance to talk about the community, the work that's already underway, the vision he has for this work, and why he invited us to collaborate with him as a university partner. So I'll pass it over to you, Pastor Simmons.
Thank you, Dr. T. I am thrilled to be invited here and to be part of this conversation. As you can tell, I'm probably the youngest person in the room. And so I have a perspective that is an outgrowth in part of the blessing that I have had of long life. What I want to say to you first about Brightmoor is probably going to be a little different than you'd expect. And that is, there's a number I want you to hold on to. And you're going to hear me repeat this number periodically. $27,000 a year. $27,000 a year is the median income of Brightmoor. the median income. That means, for those of you who've forgotten your quantitative measures class, half the population is living on $27,000 a year or less. And this is for families of 3 in Brightmoor. What you're seeing now is a map of Brightmoor with the census tracts color-coded to the level of poverty. I want to dwell on this for just a second because I want you to think now about sitting down at the table and paying your bills. $27,000 a year means that you have basically $9,000 per person in the house before taxes. You have, if you are 20% of 27 is 5, so you have maybe 25 of real, actual money divided between 3 people. If you spend 30% of your income on housing, then take out another, what is that, 7,000? Round numbers. So now you're down to 18. You got 6 apiece for 12 months. That's $500 a month per person for everything: food, medicine, transportation, clothing. I say this because we have a bias in America towards people who are low income, and we believe that they are dumb, particularly those of us who have college degrees, because we've been conditioned all of our life to believe that only the smartest people get into college. And so therefore, if we went to college and we got a degree, then therefore, we're one of the smartest people. And those people who weren't so smart didn't get into college, don't have a degree, and so either they were lazy or they lacked the intellectual equipment to be able to compete. And so it's either too bad or your fault. Luck of the draw, you didn't get the brain cells, I did, or you were lazy, played in class, I didn't, so I'm good, you aren't, life moves on. This is a massive oversimplification of a complex network of thought patterns that we hold about the poor. But I want to challenge that with you today and tell you I have a list of over 75 different activities that families who are in this community have to engage in, and the various ways that they have to invent and create ways to solve it. So when we talk about the current conditions, they are challenging, oftentimes for reasons that have nothing to do with any of those things about intellect, but have to do with the circumstances into which we are born. But Brightmoor is a community that has experienced many families have experienced multiple generations of poverty. You know from research, because you all are paying attention to this, the longer a family has been in poverty, the more difficult it is for that family to escape it. And so when we start talking about, as Dr. Trina said a few minutes ago, when we start talking about generations that are 3 or 4 generations long of being in poverty, then you're talking about some challenges that exist that are not easy to overcome. There's a statistic, and I don't know what it is, so I'm not going to quote it, but it has been researched about the percentage of people born into poverty and how many of them escape it in their lifetime. The number is in single digits. I'll leave it to you to look it up. I was supposed to do it before today, but I didn't. But the number is in single digits. It is very difficult to escape this because of the network of circumstances that wrap you up and hold you in to this space. Brightmoor is a community where many, more than half, of the families would be described or labeled by HUD as extremely poor, or extremely low income, excuse me, extremely low income. All of the social consequences of poverty that you can imagine are in Brightmoor. I just heard a report on the news a couple of days ago that on Stopel and Linden, which is probably 5 blocks from my church, maybe a half a mile from where Lakita lives, somebody found a dead body in a burned out house. That's tough when you see it on the news. It's traumatizing when it's within walking distance of your house. So we have to have an enormous amount of respect for the people who have found themselves in this situation, but who nonetheless, and this is the key, aspire more for their children. Who aspire more for their children. Maybe they won't make it themselves, but they aspire more for their children. This quality, this characteristic of families, that they, one, are trapped in a situation or caught in a situation, trapped is too final, caught in a situation, they love and have aspirations for their children, and that we all operate in networks that we use to help us survive so that then we can thrive. So the imperative is first survive, then thrive, and that means to overcome that network of circumstances that hold us back and use our network to move ahead. So the current condition is that we are in one of the lowest income communities in the United States, certainly urban communities in the United States. The people in this community are constantly searching and inventing ways first to survive and then to thrive. And we believe that helping organizations, which includes not just social service organizations, but churches, it actually includes the school. It includes all those who come with the intent to provide assistance to those in this circumstance. This particular relationship that we have with the University of Michigan, as has been pointed out, began now 14 years ago when the Good Neighborhoods Initiative started. But, you know, we talk about the University of Michigan School of Social Work, but I want to talk about Sonia. I want to talk about Trina. I want to talk about, who am I missing? There's a third person who's been with us almost this entire period of time. It's going to come back to me. Forgive me. I'm young. I forget stuff. This relationship with the University of Michigan wasn't about the University of Michigan. It was about these 3 women, the 2 I mentioned and the one whose name I'm blocking on. It was their willingness to listen to the community from a perspective of respect, to engage the community, acknowledging the strengths that the community has, and willingness to adapt their activity and practice to accommodate the insights that the community brought to the challenges that we face. And I want to say this, and then I'm closing. This is not a one-generation solution problem. This is not going to be solved in a 3-year grant. This is a generational fight, and it's going to take extended commitment, not just inside the community, because, you know, we like to blame poor people and say it's all on them. It's going to take extended work by that whole Bronfenbrenner multiple level ecological society in which we live. Each of us has a part in that. The community has its part. It's got to put in work. The helpers, we have our part. We have to help identify and guide that work and listen to the community. Universities have a part in that because you all have time to step back and think. You have time to contemplate what you've observed in us as we strive. And all of us coming together are able then to synthesize what we hope is a new path forward that over the next generation, beginning in early life, is going to transform the lives of children, not just in early life, but for their entire life. That's all I got right now.
All right, well, we're going to pass it on to Lakita to talk a little bit about her role in the community and what the process has been like for you and why you take time out of your busy life and the time you could be a parent to work with us and work with Pastor Simmons.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me. I gotta talk loud because I'm outside, it's traffic and things like that. So, first question was, why did I become a community or on a community panel? Or how did I even get involved in the 60 days and Pastor Simmons?
Start with
So,
how you first got involved. Yep, go right ahead.
okay, so I got involved because Pastor Simmons does have an organization called Brightmoor Alliance. They were doing canvassing in the area a couple years ago, and they were going door to door, and I happened to be outside at this time, and I stopped and talked to two of the women that works with Brightmoor Alliance, and they were discussing 6 a days and the vision for Brightmoor Alliance, what their outcomes are and things like that. And I was really interested because I've heard of I want to say talk, teach, and those type of programs. I've heard of them before, but this one came with the delivery of abundance, life, shelter, food, clothing, hope. The main thing I focused on was hope. So 60 days with hope was like, okay, we need this. This is what I need here. And I became more involved and participating in things like that. My biggest thing is that I know I live in Brightmoor, so I'm in the community. I've been here for years, of course, over decades. And, just the overall struggles of being a mother. I have, children that are disabled, and just the struggles of being a mother in life, working and trying to balance everything alone, and then having trauma, grief, death, loss, all of these things, and trying to make sure you can feed them and trying to make sure they can get to their doctor's appointments and things like that. It was just, a lot of weight. And being in programs such as this one, having them pour into me as a person first, and then pouring into my children made me even more grateful and wanting to do more. And I said, okay, I need to do more, because if they can do this for me, and I know my situation, I know it can help other people. So I started bringing, mothers that I knew that were hurting and things like that. I brought them in as well. And that's how we became to be a part of Brightmoor Alliance and this vision. Yeah, it was beneficial for me and my kids. I could talk about the 60 days. I can give you statistics, true, but I'd rather give you real life and how it really helped me and my kids. So my 7-year-old, he now is verbal. He was not verbal. He's autistic. He has some developmental delays. He has some, other things, but he was nonverbal. And he was nonverbal for years. And, I never let him see it worry me, but it bothered me. I really wanted to hear this baby talk, so I always talked to him. Always shared that with him. And those are one of the 60 days that I was focused on. I said, we got to talk to him. Our form of communication, because he wasn't talking, was hug. I knew when to hug him and when he needed to be hugged. That helped me communicate with him. Instead of the tantrums of me not being able to understand him, I hugged him. Calm down, baby, encouraged him, talked to him every single day. He got to forming sentences at 5 years old. Now he speaks. We still have some communication for him not knowing certain things, but he speaks now, you know, and that's just the most important thing, is to have results. When somebody can tell you that this thing can do this thing for you, but somebody can actually pour their heart out and show you that this thing actually works. Um, the others, you know, read, sing, play, hug, talk, encourage, you know, those things every single day with your child is very vital. The program is very vital. Even working with Sonia, and I'm gonna say Christine, Pastor Simmons, because she played with my son. She colored with my son. Parker was wonderful. You know, your whole team, that whole team was wonderful. It made me think more. It opened my mind more. You know, I'm a part of more community programs. I went back to school for early childhood education and I completed that. I'm my own Black Club captain, you know, things like that. Working on the Brightmoor Up and Infant Out program with them, coming up with the outcomes of situations. They made me really think when we were coming up with short-term goals, because as a parent, you always think of long-term goals. You want this problem fixed and you want to never think about it again. But it was at that point where you do have to start short-term just to give yourself a chance to breathe. Long term is coming, but let's work on short term goals. So that was one of my biggest and very life changing moments, is working on that very extensive document and coming up with short term goals to situations, you know. And I was able to talk back, and I love talking to my family about this type of thing because they're so used to us being a hurt family or a traumatized family, just due to just life, period. We can actually sit down and talk about some things. I'm happy to discuss things like this, you know? So it actually works. The project, the people, it's just all about the people. When we come together, show kindness and show support and actually listen, it changes lives. It really does.
Thank you, Lakita. I have to say, you talk about working with us and how it impacted you. And I have to say that for our team, working with you and Pastor Simmons and the other community panel members was really transformative. It helped strengthen our practice and helped us grow as social work practitioners. And I believe we learned as much from you as you learned from us. So Laquita was part of a community panel that was formed of residents of the community and those that had engaged in 6-a-day activities through the Brightmoor Alliance over time. And they were a core group of individuals that helped us develop all of the deliverables that we produced for this project. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to tell you a little bit about the planned deliverables. Initially, when we engaged with the community, we entered into a 6-month contract. By the time we finished, we were well into a year of working closely with the community, where we would meet on a weekly basis with the community panel members to design and plan and keep the work moving forward. So I'll tell you a little bit about the planned deliverables. Initially, we agreed to facilitate a series of community engagement sessions that centered the community in the program planning activities. So the whole idea was that we would be lifting resident voice, the community voice, and authentically engaging with them and responding to their needs and wants. And that was really at the core of the effort. Then we planned to co-create a program design that built on the existing work of the organization, the 6-a-day program that Laquita has been talking about, and also layer in evidence-based practice. And then a final deliverable was to be a program evaluation plan, where we were designing the program evaluation to show the impact of the program on the community, the short-term, intermediate impact, and long-term impact on the community. Now, by the end of the project, we created so much more. And here I want to just give a shout out to an alum of our School of Social Work at the University of Michigan. When Saria Bashara graduated, she joined our team for a year, and she was really an anchor member of the team and really helped manage the project and keep work moving on all of our deliverables. And now Saria is earning her PhD. She's in a PhD program at the Brown School. So I just wanted to give Saria a shout out and extend our gratitude. And I'm so happy that she's able to join this conversation with us today. So in addition to those 3 deliverables, we developed a comprehensive program timeline that guided staff through implementation of the project. We developed a comprehensive program logic model that was very detailed and contained a lot of critical information. We designed 6 gorgeous 6-a-day handouts that were professionally designed and that are used to inspire and coach families of Brightmoor. We developed multiple detailed job descriptions for all the program staff and volunteers of the program. And then we had the good fortune of working with our school's communication department, and we developed a professionally produced promotional and recruitment video for 6-a-days and the program that we were designing. And then a final deliverable, and this was no small feat. We have a Google Drive folder with dozens and dozens of summarized research articles so that they are easy to consume and draw information from, resources and tools that the program can use throughout its life cycle as it launches, as it kind of grows into maturity. These are resources and tools that the community can draw from and draw upon over time. Now, deciding what to do and how to do it was an iterative process, and everything we did and developed was led by the needs and ideas of the community. We always adapted our work based on the input from our community panel members. We would all bring ideas to the table and then adapt our work based on the input, ideas, and the wisdom that was shared by our community partners. It was so interesting where we thought we had like the perfect way forward, the perfect activity designed or program component. And then once we brought it to the community and we dissected it together, it completely changed. And it was just a learning to us that, you know, evidence-based practice and things that work in some communities may not be best suited for all communities. So you really have to connect with the community and understand what's best for the community and listen and adapt. So as I mentioned before, we really learned and grew as social work practitioners. We learned to truly work at the pace of community and let the community lead. We learned to check in with our partners often, and we didn't simply drive the work forward to meet deadlines or to stay true to our project timeline. And that's one of the reasons it took us a year as opposed to 6 months for this project. And honestly, our phones are never off the hook. I mean, we're always available, and we really welcome continued involvement with the community. And that's really our ethos as social workers and social work practitioners in this field of community engagement. It is all about the communities we work with. It is all about the goals that they're striving to achieve for their neighborhoods. It's all about truly having an impact on the social justice issues that are in play in our communities. Anything we can do to mitigate those, support communities, we're on board for that. Yeah, so I think that's what I wanted to share. I am going to turn it over to Pastor Simmons now. And we're going to drop some links in the chat. I think Trina is going to be able to do this for us. We have the 6-a-day handouts that we're going to drop in the chat, and then we're going to drop the link to the promotional video in the chat so you could look at it at your leisure. So Pastor Simmons, can you walk us through the program components?
I think you muted, Pastor Simmons.
Okay, I'm back. Fatima is whose name I was blocking on, who'd been with us since early days of Good Neighborhoods Initiative and has been such a backbone. And certainly I'm so glad you mentioned Saria, but that whole crew of students that you brought with you to this work, I didn't know them. I knew Dr. T, I knew Sonia, I knew Fatima. And I want to say this, I didn't go to them because they were at the University of Michigan. Had they been at Wayne State, or if they had been at the Brightmoor Coffee House, I would have gone wherever they were because of the trust we had built with them and the quality of their engagement with the community. So, you know, oftentimes when you talk about a university or you talk about a big name in a space, people think you were going for that name. Now, I'm not going to lie, it doesn't hurt, but that's not the reason we went there. And I want to say to those who are listening, if you want to engage in this work, you're going to have to take the time to develop personal relationships because the community will never trust you coming from an institution. They might smile at you, particularly if you show up with a bag. Well, you all don't know. Do you all know what that means? If you show up with money, then the community may very well show deference to you, but they're not going to trust you until they have a relationship with you. When you hear them, when you don't try to force them to speak your jargon, but you learn how to speak their language. When you don't try to compel them to walk in your cadence, but you alter and are willing to adjust your cadence to theirs. Because once you do that, you will discover they're quite willing to adjust their cadence, their dance, their walk, their song. But they got to trust you. That personal relationship is everything, everything. So the task at hand, 6-a-day skill building with caregivers. You heard Lakita talk about how 6-a-days, which are to read and to talk, to sing and to play, to hug and encourage. These are the 6 things that we are encouraging parents to practice with their children every day, multiple times a day. And reading doesn't mean pulling out a book. It means reading everything, reading the back of a cereal box, reading the street sign, reading what's on the television screen, reading a comic book, reading whatever has words on it, reading it, talking, spending time not directing, but engaged in a conversation. Many parents do these things. Many parents do most of them. But by tagging them as 6-a-days, we are able then to hone in on these practices. And we'll talk about why we chose this later, because this came out of the community. But this personal relationship between the families and Rhonda in caregiving, not Rhonda, Destiny, in talking about how do you do this? How can I keep this interesting? How many different ways can we do hug? And how many different ways can I encourage? Sometimes an encouragement is greeting your child with a smile. When the child sees you for the first time and your face lights up like the sun just rose out of a cloud, that is encouragement. So coming to understand these different techniques. So even though somebody may have just broken your heart, you may have just gotten bad news about the landlord, you may have just heard bad news about your job, when that child enters your presence and you burst into a smile, that is an encouragement. So to help parents begin to think of these things that they can do that will help develop their children in early life. Circles of power emerged because the community told us one of the things that they needed was respite. They needed a place to go where they could drop their guard, where they didn't have to be on point all the time. And so Rhonda, who leads the circles work, helps to create these small networks of support, of caring, of information exchange. And we call them power because when families discover, when they can take respite, when they discover that there are others similarly situated who also are working through this, they're able to combine their individual power into a kind of collective power that is significantly, has significantly more impact in their lives and in the community in which they live. Prosperity planning is helping families who are stuck not having the time. One of the things that the community taught us and that the University of Michigan team gave us a name for was time poverty. Let me give you the quick example that I use most of the time. If those of us who are making median area income have to wash our clothes, we go downstairs, go to the laundry room, wherever it may be, or we may go to a laundromat. And we take our clothes, we gather up the soap powder and whatever else we're going to use, little pads that are now popular, and we go and we turn on whatever we got to turn on, or we put the quarters or put a card into the machine, and then we wash the clothes. We come home, fold them there, come home and fold them. Clothes are washed. When you are in a situation where you don't have reliable transportation, because that's difficult to do on $27,000 a year, washing clothes becomes an enterprise. You've got to gather the clothes together. You've got to arrange to either take your children with you or for someone to take care of them. You've got to get to a place where you can wash the clothes. You've got to then have the money to pay to wash these clothes. And then you have to roll all that back. You have to get back home. You have to regather the children and then do what you have to do with your clothing. So what for us is a 3-step enterprise, for a person whose income is significantly challenged, this may be a 10-step exercise fraught with potential breakdown. So somebody takes you to the laundromat and then they won't answer the phone when it's time for you to come back home. You've just now turned a normal chore into a trauma moment. You got a child someplace, you got these clothes, you are stuck. These are not made up stories, by the way. Resource navigation. One of the things the community taught us is that people who say they're coming to help really are not there to help. They're really just there to get paid. They're overburdened. You know, you got a social worker who has a caseload of 100 families who are all in distress. What is he going to do? How is she going to be able to attend to the needs of these 100 families, which make up 300 people, all in distress? Because everybody who's living at that level of income are in distress. And so we contemplated this resource navigation where community persons and helpers would help families navigate access to the resources, which are really quite plentiful. They're not infinite, but they are plentiful. And then lastly, so that we can, because I really want to get to questions and answers, the hope is that this turns into a long-term early life alliance. And that's going to lead me back to the beginning and Laquita. Here's what the truth is. Almost all early life work begins with the child in a child care center. But children spend the first 2 to 3 years of their life with their families. And as you know, and now many people are coming to understand, those first 3 years are the most critical period in a human being's life. So we decided that what we were going to do was to reach out and use the network of the community to form a self-conscious network that would support each other, that these 1,000 families that we identified, we think there are about 3,000 young people in Brightmoor that are under the age of 6. There's 2,000 who are under 3 or under the age of 3. So we think it's about 3,000 who are in up to 5, and then about 1,000 households, maybe off a little bit. But we want to use we wanted to recreate what Lakita did, where she reached out to her friends and brought that network into this group to begin to talk with that network and begin to build that network as a self-conscious group of advocates who could speak to power, who could speak to elected officials, who could speak to policymakers, who could speak to practitioners from a perspective of power, because they've studied and worked together, and by virtue of the interactions they have in early life and in circles of power, they are learning that their lived experience, sometimes we have to have a conversation about lived experience, because isn't experience lived? Anyway, I digress. That experience is valid in and of itself. In our participation agreement, which we share with those who come alongside of us, one of the statements is that we allow the experience and the wisdom of the community to combine with data to inform the choices that we make. So we say to the community, you are powerful, surviving actors who are powerful. I want you to take note. I am not saying that they have agency. The only people who have, only time we talk about people with agency is when they're either women or people of color or poor people. You ever hear anybody say that the president of General Motors has agency, or that the president of the United States has agency? No, they have power. And so do the people in the neighborhood, each and every one of them. And so we speak of power and how they can learn to combine their individual power into collective action and create an alliance of early life partners who are both practicing 60 days, and maybe some of them have had children who kind of graduated to the next set of life, which they will discover 60 days you never outgrow 60 days, ever. We have seen families who don't have children. I was about to say something, but that might be considered political, so I'm not going to talk about cats. We have seen families that don't have children employ 60 days to build or restore relationships between people. So the power of this is that it is inexpensive, extremely effective, and can be ubiquitously practiced. And by doing so, elevate the long-term and the short-term outcomes for families. As Lakita said, she has experienced short-term results with her children, and which she hasn't had time to see yet, it's going to have long-term benefits in their school career. It also impacts the family. I said that, I don't want to repeat myself. So that's kind of what we hope. That's our desire. Our hope is that when the funding goes away, because you know it always does, foundations are as fickle as kittens. The funding's going to go away. The support, the attention of everybody is going to move to some other urgent crisis, but the community has the power within itself to do 60 days and to recruit others to it so that it becomes a cultural shift. This is not going to happen next weekend. It may not even happen next year, but it is spreading already. I want to just close with this. 60 days began with a discussion between the Brightmoor Alliance, the Brightmoor community, and the Fisher Foundation, which has been a phenomenal partner here. The Fisher Foundation helped to underwrite our work with the University of Michigan. The Fisher Foundation brought a report called the Wilder Report to the community about early life and the financial benefits of investing in early life. The community then spent 3 months discussing, debating, and prioritizing 4 things. What could a person do themselves? What could the people near them do? What could the community do? And what could agencies and people and policymakers do? The vast majority of recommendations rested on what individuals could do and folks near them could do. And that's what ultimately became the 60 days. It reached out to a partnership with a group in Detroit working on creating an early life system of care called Hope Starts Here. That system, we then forwarded it to the Imperative 2 of that system, who adopted 60 days. And now 60 days are now being used across the city of Detroit, are being placed on onesies and handed out to every single child at Henry Ford obstetrics, what do you call them? You know what I'm saying? Every child that's born at Henry Ford Hospital has been translated into 4 different languages and is now being used around the world. Started on Finkel and Lamphere in Detroit. People have power. They've just been told too long that they don't.
Thank you,
Pastor.
Pastor Simon. That really was mostly what we wanted to say, but I wanted to ask Lakita if you just want to say anything else about, well, I'll just say, as Sonia mentioned, we did our social work values and principles of engagement, and we had these standing meetings, but we wanted to make sure the community set the agenda, led the discussion. If they hadn't read the materials and said we're going to cancel the meeting the day, we canceled meeting that day. We bought research and best practice examples, but we left the decisions up to them. And so I just wanted to ask Lakita, if you just mind say a little bit more what it was like for you to work with the university as a partner, you know, what we could have done better maybe, but just kind of from your point of view, and we'll let you close it out before we go to questions.
Okay, first of all, I think you guys were absolutely great. I can't even tell you what you could have done better because you exceeded every time you did something. You were very flexible, and that was very important in creating such a program like this. Everybody needed to be on one accord, and you guys were good at doing that and making that happen. You also helped change the mindsets of some of us. And I believe once you are able to change somebody's mindsets, they can change their setting, which is where their story take place. So I really thank you, and Reverend Simmons, from the bottom of my heart, for even collaborating and coming together and believing in us enough to create such a program that the community so vitally needs. You guys didn't have to change anything. You did great. You believed in us. We believed in you. We developed a wonderful relationship. It was professional. And anything that has to do with feeding a mind of somebody, especially somebody that has little dependence, trying to feed off of them, that is powerful. Like Reverend said, he's right. That's powerful. That's powerful to build a mind, because that's a very powerful tool. So I thank you. I thank you for feeding my mind. I thank Reverend for feeding my mind so that I could feed my children's mind. I thank you guys for changing my mind to change my settings and my outcomes. And now that helped me change everybody else's. I got, you know, more encouragement, more empowerment. And now I hold more hats in the community. And I'm going to continue to be for the community, the empowerment, the uplifting, upbringing, and to push the healthy development of children so long as I got breath. So
Oh,
thank
Laquita, that was just beautiful. You know, I just want to acknowledge that you earned your associate degree during this process with us, that you put the time in and the effort
you.
in a chaotic environment, and you achieved something great.
Yep. I definitely did. It's like I said, when you've been having so many limits set upon you and someone pushes you to the point where you feel unstoppable, then that's what you become. Believe that you are unstoppable and believe that you can do things. You are limitless, even though it feels sometimes that you just can't breathe or you can't catch a break. Just believe that you are limitless, and you just need that one person or that one, I'm gonna say that group or that school or those students or those people to take that extra time to feed into you and pour into you so that you can be the breath the community needs, so that they can uplift their homes. And that's all I preach. I preach the same things. If I made it, you can make it. We live next door to each other. There's no way I can come up without you.
And that's all we got. So if any questions are from the audience, we'd love to hear your feedback. I think the way Sonia put it, we put all the pieces together. And so now Pastor Simmons and the Brightmoor Alliance are shopping things around to see if they can grow what they've started. It's already great, but they can continue it and grow it over time. So we're open to questions. Yep, go ahead.
I would just say this, the methodology we designed, I'm actually employing in another grant that we're applying for that's quite large. But those structures that we have there are the framework for this other grant, not related to early childhood, it's related to workforce development and community engagement. So it is a powerful approach that validates having faith in the community without regard to the community as well.
So we have a question that relates to what Pastor was saying, which is, how do you keep the collaborations going when the funding might have ebbs and flows and dips? So how do you sustain this partnership?
I could speak to that a little bit. Oh, you want to do it, Trina? You want to jump in?
Go ahead, Sonia. Go ahead.
Just, the School of Social Work, the University of Michigan School of Social Work, the school itself invests in community engagement. And part of salaries of a couple of staff members are covered by the school to engage and to be connected to community. So that's one piece of it, is that the school invested in this work and helped create the space for us to work with community. But also our initiative at the school that we call Engage is a field site for MSW students. So we often have student talent and people and students working with us to help work with community partners. Trina?
I was just going to say that the Skillman work kind of ended, and we kind of scrambled around a little bit to figure out how we're going to continue to get funded. And so what happened, at least regards to Brightmoor, every time we saw Pastor Simmons at a community meeting, every time we saw him at a community event, we'd ask how things were going, but we didn't have a funded project. We just kind of touch base every once in a while. And then to be honest, what they gave us was a little bit of money. It wasn't enough to pay everyone's salary, but it was enough to kind of commit us to meet with them on a regular basis to keep the conversation going. So we weren't actually trying to get the next big grant to fund everybody. We're just trying to say, what pieces can we continue to keep going until maybe there is a bigger grant. But like Sonia said, we have a community engagement strategy from the school. And so we can kind of have that be our foundation until maybe something else comes along. But I think the relationships, once you have them, they continue, even if the actual funded project might come and go.
Great, thank you.
So I would add this. We maybe 5 years ago a pastor and I, Pastor Samil Thomas from City Covenant Church, we had a real cold snap in Detroit. And so we decided we were originally going to open up both churches. We ultimately decided to open up his church, and our volunteers would come to his church to support him, and we would open up a warming center. So he has a program where they provide meals to people every day. And so it was natural that we would go to his place, and at the conclusion of the meal, people would not have to leave the church, but they could stay the night there. So the first night we did this, nobody came. The second night we did it, one person came. So Pastor Samil asked one of their regular diners, how come y'all are not making use of the warming center? He said, Pastor Samil, you think we've been waiting around for you to figure out how we were going to stay warm? That has been one of the big lessons of my life. So what I would say is, once people have 60 days, they don't need us anymore. The whole point of this is that they should not need us. They should be able to use their own power to practice this. That's the whole beauty of this. You don't need Lakita's gotten her associate's degree. You don't have to have an associate's degree in child development. You can do this without any of that. You can create your own. As beautiful as these slides are, I hope you all take a look at them. As beautiful as they are, listen, you can draw this, you can make that a hugging, encouragement, talking exercise with your child with a pencil and a piece of paper. Have them, one of the things I learned in doing this is, have your child tell you a story, or have your child draw you a picture and then tell you a story about the picture, or do it the other way around. That's free. This is the key. If we're going to turn the problem of poverty in America, it is going to have to employ the creative energy of the people who are poor. No solution that we come up with or think we come up with that does not engage and include the power of the individual to seize control. But you heard Lakita say, if you believe in you, you can do incredible things. So as much as we love the University of Michigan and look forward to the big project, which we're trying to shop now, if nobody does this and people just take the paper and pass it to their best friend, I tell them that, and I'm going to close with this. How did all of us learn to smoke? One of our friends taught us. Everybody here who learned to smoke, almost all of us were brought to it by a friend. I'm not recommending that you go learn to smoke if you haven't, but we have. I guess this is being recorded, so I can't say this. There is a network that existed before us, existed with us, and will exist beyond us. Our goal is to plug into it and to provide it with the resources to exercise its power for the benefit and the future of its children and themselves.
Great segue, talking about using voice and community experience. We have a question for Lakita, which is, how have you used your voice and experience as a community member to advocate within this partnership?
Well, let's see. I've done a lot of events, so I facilitate a lot of events, and pretty much most of that come out of my pocket. I have gotten a hold to some grants, been blessed by that, just to get the word out. I did do canvassing too, that's how it started. I started also doing canvassing, but I said maybe I can gather people together more if I put on events and things like that. I've used my platform also in other avenues, such as being able to travel, because I'm a union steward. I go to Washington, fight for different things of that nature. I always take 60 days with me, no matter where I go, no matter what I do. So I'm always using my ability, my voice in every aspect of everything I do to push the community.
You want to say something about block clubs, Lakita?
Sure, we do got block clubs. I am a block club captain. I had no clue about none of that. I promise you, until Brightmoor Alliance came to my life. And fed, like I said, fed those things, those values and that importance into me. So I do run my own block club. I don't mind telling you, y'all can write letters or send them if you guys want to. But the name of my block club is called Divine DaCosta, because I believe that my community will overshadow whatever we go through. We powerful, and there's something special in us, even if it's spiritual, it's divine.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm reflecting on what the Reverend said about power and agency, and kind of thinking through those words and how we use them in social work too. So a lot to reflect on.
Mhm.
I have another question from the audience, and I'd like to pose this to the Reverend and Simmons and Dr. Shanks, from each of your own perspective. Is what were some of the hurdles in establishing trust as community partners and researchers, and how did you overcome them?
I'll go way back. So not this partnership, but when we first started Good Neighborhoods, this is before Pastor Simmons was even executive director of Brightmoor Alliance. It was someone else. And so the very first part of the Skillman strategy was to have a large community meeting. And so there's a group called Data Driven Detroit that did these little maps and put all this data together. And they said, Trina, you are going to be our connection to Brightmoor, so why don't you present this data? So I got the data the day of, right? So not like I even had a chance to do much with it. And it wasn't data that I did, but I had this little PowerPoint slide and pamphlet that came from Data Driven Detroit that gave statistics for Brightmoor. I didn't even get one slide in before somebody said, you know why we have these educational scores? Because we deal with all the special needs kids and the other schools don't take them. Those data aren't valid. You said it's this, but it's really this. And I mean, I'm like, before I even got a chance to get to like slide number 2, I was getting all this pushback because I was coming in talking about their community, right? So the next time we did it in the next community, I said, I'm not going to put myself in that position again. So what we did is we had young people come, took the same data from Data Driven Detroit, the same little pamphlet, but we had the young people presented. And then you go, child, that's right, and it was like a whole different experience because someone from the community was talking about the data as opposed to me, coming in and telling them about their community. And so that was some pushback I got from one of the very first meetings I had in Brightmoor. And I didn't want to make excuses because I was up there talking about something I didn't know a whole lot about. But the next time I said, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to make sure the community is alongside me or doing it. That was an example of a hurdle, but I think over time, one, I became a little more connected and they knew who I was, but secondly, making sure that you don't do things that are going to upset people. You make sure you have some conversation on the side to make sure what you're planning on doing is going to be well received.
Excellent.
I would say what Trina just said is the key. She said, talk to somebody. We spend so much of our time becoming experts at whatever it is that we spend our time studying. To be an expert, to learn the jargon, to learn the particulars. One of the things that I remember when I came back to the helping services that frustrated me was whenever people would talk about poverty, they would have there's the federal poverty line, there's the area median income and a percentage of the area median income. And there's a third category of poverty that's often talked about. And so depending on whether you were in a human service silo or whether you were in a housing silo, I can't think what this other one is.
Free reduced lunch?
Yeah, free and reduced lunch. That's exactly right. Free and reduced lunch. You're in a school setting. Now, everybody's talking about the same person. Everybody was talking about the same person, but they're all using different labels to reference them. And so you'd be in meetings and people would be literally talking right past each other and talking about the same group of people, or sometimes the same person. So talking and listening and being willing to acknowledge that the person who does not have your level of mastery of the jargon or the concepts may nonetheless have a point. There's a story that's told. I have no idea if this is just an African fable or if this really was history. But the story is told that when Europeans arrived on the coast of Africa, they were warned by the people who lived there not to go down by the river because demons lived down there. And so, of course, the Europeans, confident of their own intellectual superiority, ignored them because they don't believe in demons. They were Christians. We don't believe in demons. We don't believe in that kind of stuff. That's superstition. So they trotted their happy behinds on down there to the river and came back with malaria because the demon, it wasn't in the scientific jargon that they wanted to hear, the demon they were being warned about in language they didn't understand was real. The same thing is true in communities. Communities have ways of communicating with each other about things which people new to the community may be unfamiliar with. I was in a meeting the other day with the city. There's a group of homes in Brightmoor called Brightmoor Homes. It was a housing development project that went way off the rails. They promised that if people lived in these houses for 15 years, at the end of 15 years, they would be given the house, that their rent would be used to pay the mortgage, and that at the end of the 15 years, they could have the house. Needless to say, who can predict what the market's going to be in 15 years? None of that is happening, and there's an outrage. So there's a whole thing going on about Brightmoor Homes. So the city sends in a guy, because the city's doing this planning project, that's a whole nother subject. And he starts talking about Brightmoor Homes. And just like Trina just described, the community went off. What are you talking about, Brightmoor Homes? That's not what's happening with Brightmoor Homes. This is what's happening with Brightmoor Homes. So he starts to argue with them. That's when the city says Brightmoor Homes, this is what it means. No, it isn't. He was just uninformed. And instead of slowing down to see that people were using Brightmoor Homes as a term of art, as a local language, he wanted to impose his framing upon the community. Eventually, this got worked out and he understood, oh, Brightmoor Homes is a specific project, which he would have gotten right away had he talked to somebody. So I would say that the first problem you're going to have to overcome is talking to somebody, and then listening and figuring out how to get in the cadence of where they are. The one thing you do know, if you know nothing else about them, is that they are surviving and they want to thrive.
Thank you.
Every human being alive has those two imperatives.
You gave us a lot to think about. Agency and power, surviving and thriving. And those words have meaning, not just in the academic parlance, but in people's lives.
Yeah.
So just as we have a couple more questions, and then we'll wrap up. One is kind of, I have one quick question and then we'll just do some final thoughts. So one audience member has a question. The 6-a-day handouts look great. Is there collaboration with other communities locally and nationally, and can they be shared?
Let's see. Short answer is yes, they can be shared. I don't know about the handouts. I have to ask you of them. So the handouts are now our possession, correct? Because we actually had this discussion about the collaterals we were building.
Yeah,
Is that right?
they're yours. They are the communities. They are yours
Okay,
to
so
do
we
with
have,
as you please.
we have not written up an agreement, but I would say to you and to anyone else, all that we would ask is that you will attribute the 6-a-days to the community of Brightmoor. They were developed, designed, well, maybe design is the wrong word. They were developed by a community called Brightmoor, and they are offered to the world as a way to help our children to thrive.
Okay, thank you. And then just kind of a last wrap-up question for anyone on the panel. This has been just so illuminating and such a great model to think about community university partnerships, not just in theory, but in the nitty-gritty of practice and praxis. So any last suggestions that you have for researchers who really, or community members who really want to initiate these equitable partnerships? You know, any tips or pearls of wisdom that anyone wants to share?
I guess
Well, I would,
say to community.
no, go ahead.
I would say to
I just say really
community-
quickly, don't overpromise. So if you don't have the time and space to do it, or you only can give one consultation, and if there's not funding, you can't do anything else, say that. Don't kind of string people along and kind of say you're going to do it, kind of say yes, but then don't follow through. And I think one of the reasons that we were so excited to be able to use our field students with this is they were excited and they wanted to do this, right? And so if they wanted to put in an extra 5 or 10 hours because they saw the kids and they wanted to make it look pretty and then do whatever, I probably couldn't put another 5 or 10 hours in making the handout, but the students can, right? And so we promised something pretty simple, but then over time, we're able to give more. And I think it's better to be able to do that than to promise something that you can't deliver.
And I would, go ahead. I would just say to the community, be patient with the universities. They're still learning.
That's also awesome. Yes, we have a lot to learn. Anything else from folks?
You know, I would just say, find out who else from your university is active in the neighborhood or working with the community or the group that you're targeting or that you're beginning a dialogue with. Because what we find at our university is that faculty, departments, schools really work in silos, and they're not communicating with one another about like what neighborhoods they're working in, what organizations they're working in. So really do your homework beforehand, do that discovery, and then talk with those folks, because you know, working together, you can often have much greater impact than everybody kind of doing their own thing with a community group.
Lakita, is there any last words? Anything else folks want to share?
You know what I would ask? If you do use the 6-a-days or you use any part of what we've done, just let us know how it works for you, because we can learn from you. Just, you know, email or get in touch with Dr. T or Sonia. Just hit us back and let us know.
Okay.
I can also attest to that. I do utilize my local libraries as a space as well, meeting people in there, talking to them as well, and having a space to gather and discuss things as far as in the community and with the community. Those community partnerships can be developed through just visiting businesses and talking to them and asking them, is it okay if I use this space to meet with the community or to talk to some of your customers or patrons here? Can I leave this information here? You know, just developing relationships throughout your community can help build your community up as well, and it help you get a bigger voice in your community.
Okay, well, those were almost all the questions, including some that I combined. This was wonderful, and I'm gonna now turn it back to Stephanie for closing.
Thank you so much, Laura, and all of our panelists. Thanks everybody for joining the webinar today. Here are the links to join the rest of our webinar series and register for all of the sessions, as well as access a recording of this session, which will be available on both our open classroom and the registration page for the full series. So it should be easy to find, and we'll be sharing that after. There's some QR codes and links there, as well as those that we posted in the chat today. So thank you all